So, episode 7 of Seraph of the End, season 2, it was actually a pretty simple episode. We actually got Guren versus Crowley, and that fight, I thought maybe there would be, a bit more even, but no, Guren was actually getting pretty destroyed in this fight, and that right there is surprising because we all know that in the group of current characters that we're following, Guren is easily, the most powerful, and I'm not counting, use other power because this guy is not even aware of it, so to that power, he cannot control it, so obviously I cannot really consider him, one of the strongest, where he had this power that, not even he can control. And so we see now that at the beginning of the episode that they all found the hostages, and we see now that, they had the vampire guards, out there. And now, I'm not sure if that was just me, but I noticed that the vampires, now I do believe that they had like 2 sets of swords, and I was thinking that, maybe they had stolen, the human weapons, because obviously we didn't see them on the humans, so that means it could be impossible that the vampires would be, using their own weapons against them, or maybe, they all took their weapons and would just be like studying them. But we see now that, right now, so we see now Guren had to make a choice about what to do with the hostages, because obviously all the vampires watching them, would mean that they were obviously waiting for everybody, to come rescue them, and that way, they can ambush them. And we even see now you here, he would willingly walk into a trap, to save his comrades, and we see now that the adults here had to like step up and kind of like shut them down. And so we have the Trident guy, or Narumi, I believe his name is. We see now that this guy was like definitely more emotionally involved than you, because he had friends down there, and this guy, said, let's kill the hostages and retreat. And that right there, was messed up, but at least that right there would like save them from being tortured and possibly leaking any information out, to the vampires. And so right now, Guren tells them that this right here is like a decoy mission where they have to, distract all the nobles, so that way the main unit can actually, go deeper into the vampire bases, because this right here is like a first step out of many. And so right now we see Shinya. This guy is definitely more of a realist than I gave him credit for, because I thought this character would be one who like always had his head in the clouds, but no, he actually, this guy was actually being pretty real with like all the words he was saying, where they can actually just like back off right now and retreat, leaving those hostages behind, letting them be tortured and possibly or eventually killed. Or what they can do is, they can actually attack, free hostages and then retreat. But this guy, he said there was no guarantee to how many they can save. And so right now, Guren, he actually wanted to see how they would react if they actually shot at them. And so right now, sadly, this unit or this group now only has 2 snipers, and we see now that Shinya was like going to take one floor, and we have Yoshi, he was like going to the other, and we see now that Yoshi, he actually spotted Crowley, and so we see that he actually wanted to shoot him, and Guren gave him the okay. And we see now Crowley, even though this guy barely sensed the arrow or bat or whatever you want to call it, coming at him, at the last second, this guy actually caught it, and we see now that the offer he was in, it was obviously, it was like pretty messed up, but even so, this guy was like unfazed by that. And so right now, Crowley here, or Crowley was definitely not bothered at all. And we see now that Chess and Horn, because Horn is the blonde girl, they were like wondering, what they should do, because right now we have Guren's group giving away their position, and we have the girls wanting to go after them, but no, Crowley said, let's wait here, let's not go out there and chase them, because they're the one that have to come here to get their comrades. And so right now, Guren's new plan is him and Shinowa Squad, they will actually go, fight Crowley and, and Chess and Horn, while we have the Narmi squad, they will actually go save their comrades. And so we see now that the smoke using Guren squad, I believe the name was like Goshi, something like that. But we see now Guren had a plan where he would like make all of these, fake soldiers because they'll be illusions. And we see now that, this guy, even though his powers are like pretty awesome with the smoke, he does have a limited range. So right now, he was definitely not as close to his power as he would like to be. And then we see now that when Guren said, get closer, I was like dying laughing when like Shinya pretty much wrote this guy off as a dead man, because that right there was, pretty messed up. And so right now, with like everybody, knowing their roles, it was finally time to put their plan into action. And so we see now that when we see now at one point where the Shinwa squad, when they were all alone, Shinwa was like making sure that, you would stick with this plan and actually, retreat on time no matter what. Even if that meant, leaving someone behind, because, we all know that he definitely does not want any of the comrades to die. And we see now that when all of the comrades were like threatened, in season 1, that right there is what caused him to go berserk. And we even see now that, that when you had Crowley, that right there had brought back the flashback of him fighting him, back from season 1. And we even learn now that, Crowley here, like, single-handedly took down 9 elite squads. So obviously this guy's like very powerful, because we saw that other noble get defeated pretty easily, but Crowley, this guy is definitely on, a whole different level. And I do wonder why in the world is he so powerful, because we saw one noble go down, like fairly quick, but Crowley here, this guy is like a real monster. And so now we have everybody moving in, and we see now that, that the smoke guy plan, it was like definitely working. And so right now, Guren here, he was not wasting time, because we have Crowley, watching, from above, and Guren just went up there, and we see them now fighting. And so at one point now where we have, Crowley, actually defecting, Guren's sword, we see him now using those talismans. But that right there wasn't enough, and we even have Crowley here, grabbing Guren's arm, and then we have Shinya, who was like going to shoot him, but for some reason he was like talking for way too long, and this right here gave Crowley the chance to actually throw Guren at the Shinya, and that right there already messed him up. And so we see now that these two, they were like trying to catch a breather, and at one point but at one point we have Shinya saying this right here is like probably the end for us, but Guren was like, no, like my plan is like going just as I wanted to, something like that. And obviously Shinya had like called him out on it, and then we have Crowley now chasing them down. And so once again they like had to fight, and they're like pretty much struggling throughout the entire encounter. Guren here could not even, harm him. So I do wonder what in the world is the source of this vampire strength, because obviously he is a noble that we have not seen before. So I do wonder if maybe there is something special about him, or it's possible that, this guy just might be that good. And so right now, when things weren't looking that good, we have you wanting to go help Guren, because obviously he had needed it. And so right now, Shinwa was like, we can't spare 3 minutes, but you must follow my orders. And so now, they were like going to help Guren, and we see now at one point, we have Guren, using his sword, and I thought maybe that right there might give him an upper hand, but no, we have Shinya trying to shoot Crowley in the back, and this guy actually affected all the bullets and made one hit him, but at the same time, that right there made an opening so that way they could escape. And so right now, we have Crowley, chasing them down, and we see now that, Shinya was like obviously hurt. He did have like some wound to his chest from where his own bullet, actually hit him. And so we see now that, Crowley was like chasing him, and we have Shinya, shooting him, and we see that the first two, he actually deflected, and in a nice fashion, he actually did dodge the third one pretty nicely by simply, stepping to the side. And so right now with like both of them definitely in no condition to fight, you would think that maybe they had escaped him, but no, Crowley was like able to find him pretty easily, and we see him now knocking down, part of a wall to actually get to them. And so we see now that with Shinya still hurt, there was like no way he could fight, and so Guren, threw him away. And now once again we have like a brief exchange between Guren and Crowley, and we see now that with Guren already beat up, there was no way he could win. And eventually now we have Crowley actually stabbing him like through his shoulder and like part of his chest as well. And that like at first I don't know why, but I thought maybe it had like went through his heart, because when you see sword come out of his back, that's where it seemed like it hit him, but no, it was like actually from like his shoulder to his chest. And so right now with like Guren hurt, we have the others, the Shinwa squad. They were now in the building, but rather than going to the 5th floor where Guren was, I believe, they actually continue on the 4th one. And so we see now that from the from underground now we have you coming out of nowhere. And so we see that obviously Crowley, if Crowley can handle Guren, he could definitely handle you. And we see him now about to actually attack you, and sadly that right there is where the episode ended, kind of like on a cliffhanger. But obviously there is no way that you was gonna die. Now Guren, for some reason I could believe Guren might die, even though I definitely don't want to. It seems like now might be a believable case, because he's like definitely getting messed up. We have Shinya already hurt, so there's no way he can fight. And so now it's definitely not looking that good, but I'm not really sure just how it's going to plan out. But I'm definitely curious to see how it just might happen. But overall for episode, to me it was definitely good. Crowley is like definitely hype. I'm curious to see what happened to Guren. But as always, let me know what you guys thought. And please do not forget to like and subscribe. It really helps me out. But as always, you guys take it easy. I will see you all next time.